All right, everybody. Welcome to this week's lesson and training. Feel free as you're listening in, you can add in any comments at any time, and I'll be happy to try to help you out. Today, we're going to talk through 5 big obstacles that I see that slow down people's mental health recovery path. So, if this is especially an important video for you if you are feeling like you've been having a tough time moving your mental health forward for a while, especially if you feel like you've been using the same strategy for a while, or you feel like maybe you've tried everything. If you feel like nothing is seeming to really work for you, then this video will help you a lot, because we've just crossed the 400 successful client mark, where we've had people reduce anxiety by at least 75% or more. Many of them have eliminated it entirely. And so we've gotten a very good sense as to what really works and what doesn't work for improving mental health. And in addition to those 400 total clients that we've had, in addition to that, each year I do probably about a little less than 1,000 consultations. So it's somewhere around like 2 to 3 consultations a day. And that's where I'm learning about what is somebody dealing with, what are their goals, what have they tried so far, and what is it that's gotten in their way. So I've gotten a very clear sense as to what is getting in the way for people, which is very, very valuable, because we can see what is slowing people up. And sometimes that's even more valuable, because I'll talk to people from all ages, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And so when I speak to somebody who's 60 years old and they've been dealing with this for 40 years, I'm able to learn a lot about what kept them stuck for 40 years. And those are honestly where I've learned so much over the years of how to make sure that we get people unstuck. Is just figuring out what not to do is incredibly valuable. If you're trying to get a particular result and you feel like you're not getting the result that you want, it's simply because there's a series of habitual behaviors that you're doing right now that are getting you a particular result that you don't want. And so that's a good way for us to kick this training off. So the training is really about making sure you get unstuck. And I've identified 5 key ones that I'm going to zero in on today for you. But the first big overarching concept I want to remind you guys of is this. And it's a little formula that I came up with years ago. And here's the formula. The formula is emotions equal behavior. Behavior equals results. Results equals destiny. Okay, so what that means is, the reason why you're getting the particular results that you have, the mental health that you have right here, right now, is a byproduct primarily of the decisions or behaviors that you have taken up until now. Now, of course, your childhood plays a role. Genetics to a small degree play a role, things of that nature. However, the dominant force and focus that I have found determines people's mental health is their decisions, their habits, their actions. Another way to say that would be, there are things that people do on a regular basis that induce high levels of anxiety, that induce high levels of depression. There are habits that people can do that will induce high levels of joy, peace of mind, feelings of confidence, things of that nature. And my entire career has been about figuring out what are those very specific, nuanced mental habits that people are not even aware that they're doing, that are very changeable, so that they can learn how to do the right thing. So the metaphor I always like to use is, imagine this. You have a control room in your brain. You have if you've seen the old Star Trek movies, or Star Wars, or any of those types of things, right? There's this big battleship, and then there's this big control panel with all these buttons on it. And so the way I always imagine it is, you are at the helm inside of your mind, and there's a bunch of red buttons on the left, and then there's a bunch of blue buttons on the right. All the red buttons are buttons that you can push that make yourself feel what you don't want to feel, like anxious, depressed, stressed, whatever that is. The blue buttons on the right-hand side would be the buttons you can push that make you feel what you do want to feel: joy, excitement, confidence, things of that nature. Now, what I've learned is that these buttons really kind of exist. They really do. And without knowing it, you've been habitually pressing red buttons over and over and over and over again. And so, really, in a very simplified way, getting the mental health you want is about, first of all, identifying all the red buttons that you're pushing, that you didn't even know you were pushing in many cases, refusing to push those red buttons, and building the habits of pressing the blue buttons instead. Now, some of that is easier than other elements. So some habits are easier to change and build than others. But if you don't know if you don't know what those red buttons are that you keep pressing, there's no chance in hell that you're going to improve your mental health. You've got to first of all identify them. So I want to walk through these five. So these are the five of the big ones I've seen that slow people up on improving their mental health. And they are ways that we talk to ourselves. So one of the ways that we impact our emotions is through our internal dialogue. And very often our internal dialogue is sneaky, like we don't really notice that it's happening on a regular basis. And there are particular word choices that are going to craft emotions that you feel on a regular basis. So here's one thing you might want to write down, or at least just commit to memory if you're listening in your car or something. Every word that you say has an emotional consequence. Every single word that you use has an emotional consequence. If you are feeling an undesirable set of emotions on a regular basis, one thing you want to start to get curious about are what the habitual words are and language choices that you keep using on a regular basis. So I'll give you a couple examples to show the power of this. These are 1000% true stories. Okay, I had a woman I was working with years ago who had she had been diagnosed as bipolar. So she could go very angry very quickly, and then she could go very sad very quickly. And so we were looking at what the cause of this was. And I noticed that as she was describing to me situations where she felt really angry, this one word she kept using many, many times, which was humiliated. So I remember her telling me this story of how she was at work, she was in a meeting with a bunch of her coworkers, her boss made a joke sort of in her direction, kind of made fun of her a little bit, but in a pretty harmless way, it comes to find out. She immediately in her mind thought, why would you humiliate me like that in front of all of the coworkers? And so as she's telling me about this memory, her blood started to boil. She goes, my boss humiliated me, and I've never been so humiliated in my whole life. And so I just said, can I ask you a question? Is it really true that he humiliated you? Or was he actually just trying to treat you like one of the gang? Because it sounds like he does this with other people too. And she stopped and she thought about it and she goes, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. I never really thought about it like that. And immediately her anger level just evaporated. And so I even asked her, I'm like, what level of anger do you feel when you say to yourself that you were humiliated? She's like, oh, an 11. I said, okay. And what level of anger do you feel when you realize that maybe he was just poking a little fun? She's like, oh, maybe like a 2, like a 1 or a 2, pretty much nothing at all. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, do you think if there was one single change you could make in your vocabulary that could take your anger levels from an 11 down to a 2, that might be worth making? Especially if it causes you to be more truthful with what your experience of life is like and you're no longer lying to yourself. And so that's what she did. So I gave her the assignment. I said, look, for the next 2 weeks, do not use the word humiliated. And let's just see what happens. I had my next session with her 2 weeks later. She said, I can't even believe it. It's like my anger has completely evaporated. And that's what happened, right? So different words cause us different emotions because meaning is what makes emotion. And the meanings that you tell yourself on a regular basis are what create beliefs. So that's the second thing I want you to understand. Not only will a word choice impact how you feel in the moment, not only will it change what you think is possible in the moment, it will also create a belief if you repeat it over and over. Repetition equals belief. So what I have found, again, and I have done now, I'm trying to get as accurate of a number as I can because I don't want to just throw out a BS number. I've probably done around 6,000 to 7,000 consultations with people dealing with depression and anxiety in the past couple of years. And so that's a lot of hours. That's like 7,000 hours of listening and picking up on how people talk and what they say and why they're feeling the way that they're feeling. Okay, so I just want you to understand this is not like just pulled out of my ass. And what I have found is that there are five, I think it's five, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, five big language patterns that I see people use that keep them stuck in their current mental health. So let's talk through these. Okay, the first one is I don't know. And by the way, the term for these is an incantation. An incantation is a language pattern you say on a regular basis. And think of it as like self-hypnosis. So any of you who have felt depressed or anxious know that when you get in an anxious or depressed mode, it's very easy for you to feel convinced of something that like the very next day you'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I thought I was going to have a heart attack yesterday. It turns out I'm fine. Or man, I can't believe I felt so depressed, because now I can see that that's not really the case. You know, my partner does love me, or whatever it is, right? Please show some love in the comments. Let me know. Like, have you ever had a moment where you're telling yourself something is true again and again and again in the moment, and it feels totally true, but then later after the fact you realize, no, that wasn't true at all? Okay, and this is often why there's a big disconnect, why people have trouble connecting with their spouses when they have mental health issues, because the spouse is like, what are you talking about? Just get over it. Meanwhile, you are saying to yourself over and over again, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. And you feel totally convinced that you're going to die, even though you're not. So that's why there's a big disconnect, because it's like you have a song stuck in your head that your partner can't hear. That's what an incantation is. And the repetition creates belief. So these are the five big ones. The first one is, I don't know. Okay, so I see Charlie's comment there. Yeah, it happened yesterday. I was so upset at work with it. Yeah, exactly, right? So if you can identify what your main incantations are, Charlie, right, then you'll be able to figure out a way to get power over your mental health, okay? And maybe some of these are ones that you use. One is, I don't know. So very often people use this, and what they're really saying when they say, I don't know, what they're really saying is, I am not coming up with the information as quickly as I think I should. And so they just say, I don't know. But the problem is when they use an incantation of I don't know, it shuts the brain off. They now have convinced themselves that they legitimately don't know. So someone will come by and say, hey, what would you like to do this afternoon? What would be fun? And they go, I don't know. What would you like to do this weekend? I don't know. What would make you feel better? I don't know. Right? And what they do is they shut it down over and over and over again. This can also be for trying to solve problems in their life. So if they've got, say, like a stress at work, or a stress with their finances or something like that, and someone asks them, oh, okay, gotcha, so what do you think would help the situation? They go, I don't know. It's not that you don't know, it's that you're not giving yourself enough time to actually come up with a new answer or solution. And this is one of the first habits I have to break with my clients, because I will ask them questions that they've never asked themselves. Like I'll ask them, when is a time that you remember feeling joy in the past? Because I want to reverse engineer how to make sure that they can feel joy on a regular basis. And they'll go, I don't know. And I say, BS, of course you know. There have been times in the past when you felt joy. When is a time you felt joy in the past? So you got to be willing to challenge, you got to be willing to be a little uncomfortable going down new pathways of thought in order to expand your current way of looking at the world. If you use the words I don't know too often, you're going to keep yourself in a mental rut. You're only going to allow yourself to go down the same rabbit holes that you've always gone down, which will tend to be rabbit holes of like what you're afraid of, or what you think is wrong, or how you blame yourself. Right? So if someone comes along and is like, well, what are you proud of with yourself? And you go, I don't know. You've got to be willing to sit with those tougher questions a little bit. And one of the questions I want to pose to you, throw out to you, that you can start to use is like, what is one tiny thing you could do that would start to improve your mental health today? And it doesn't have to be a big giant thing, right? Don't compare yourself to perfection, but just, would it be going out for a walk every day? Would it be meditating for 5 to 10 minutes? Would it be, what would it be, right? Just let yourself come up with an answer, and be willing to trust the first answer that comes up for you, rather than feeling like you have to get the exact, quote, right answer every time. That's why people tell themselves, I don't know, also, because they get so caught up in the idea of right and wrong, and they don't want to get it wrong, and they presume that there is a right and there is a wrong answer, and they don't want to get it wrong. So they just say, I don't know, and they want to back away from the responsibility of making a new choice and answering a new question. Okay, so that's the first one. You want to get rid of that, especially if you're saying to yourself, like, I don't know how to get past this. I don't know how to improve my anxiety. Okay, well, if you did know, what would you do? That's a little hack you can use. Okay, number two, and really this second one I should have put as number one, is the phrase I can't. Okay, this is by far the number one anxiety inducing phrase that I have found over the years that people will use. This word will always make you feel anxious or stressed. So right now you might have a habit of saying to yourself things like, I just can't feel better, or I can't find a strategy that works, or I can't improve my anxiety, or I can't improve my depression. Okay, something like that. If you're using a can't phrase, you got to start to change that into I can, even if it's challenging, right? So instead of I can't go to the store, I can't drive, I can't be out in public, I can't get out of bed in the morning. Yeah. Instead, what you want to do is start to build the mental habit of I can, even if it's challenging. And so a lot of times people will do this even with the very mental health strategies that they've tried. Is, they'll start to learn, say, like a little bit of CBT, or they'll start a little bit of meditation, or they'll just immediately come up with a story in their head of like, no, I can't talk to other people about my problems. I can't focus at all, right? And they use these very like universal big language things. Yes, of course you can. It's just going to be challenging in the beginning because you're getting your brain to think in a totally new way. So don't tell yourself you can't improve. Don't tell yourself you just flat out can't be responsive to a particular strategy. You got to be willing to, entertain a different story, okay? The third big one that I see people use is the phrase, I've tried everything, right? And this goes into a slightly different topic of universal language. So universal language will always make you feel anxious, stressed, depressed, something like that. This is language like everything, nothing, no one, everyone, always, right? Things like that. Okay, there are very, very, very few experiences in life where it's actually accurate to say that it's 100% of those situations. Almost all things have an exception. And so if you're saying I've tried everything, here's what I found out of 7,000 consultations. Usually when people are saying I've tried everything, what they really mean, truthfully, because I'll ask them like, okay, cool, tell me every single thing that you've tried. And they'll go, all right, well, I did therapy, and I'll write that down. Okay, great, what else? They'll say, okay, well, I did some medications. I'll write that down. I'll say, what else? I'll say, I read this self-help book 5 years ago. I write that down. I'm like, okay, cool, what else? And then they usually cannot come up with anything else after three things. Some people will have done like 4 or 5, but usually the vast majority of people do 2 things, and then they tell themselves, I've tried everything. And what they usually do is they do medications and therapy, and then they say, that's it, I've tried everything, it's all over. Well, that's not true. There's many different ways that you can go about improving your mental health, right? So if you didn't respond to a particular strategy, whatever it was, that doesn't mean you've tried everything. If you tell yourself I've tried everything, you're going to create a prison in your mind of your own creation, where you feel that you are now without choices. And remember this, we feel anxiety or depression in direct proportion to how few choices we convince ourselves that we have. So when you convince yourself you don't have more choices, you feel trapped. When you feel trapped, you feel hopeless. When you feel hopeless, you don't want to take action. And that's the whole thing we're trying to solve on this video, is how to get you out of a state of learned helplessness so that you actually take action to improve your mental health. So don't convince yourself you've tried everything. I'm not trying to take away from you. I'm not saying you haven't tried. I'm sure you've tried. But just be factual and honest with yourself. This is a key aspect of being a good leader, right? Leading and improving an area of your life requires seeing it as it is, but not worse than it is. Okay? The fourth one is the phrase, I'm stuck. And so I always like to share this story, which is, I'll ask people, are you familiar with the Hoover Dam? And most people are. And most people are not familiar, though, that there is a story where, this is totally true, but there are 6 people trapped inside of the Hoover Dam, inside of the concrete of the Hoover Dam. Most people don't know that. And so I'll ask them, are you inside of the Hoover Dam? And they'll be like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, are you or are you not? And they'll go, no, of course not. And I say, great, so you're not stuck. Those are the only 6 people in the world who are stuck, right? You have the ability to move, you have the ability to think, you have the ability to write, you have the ability to pick up the phone and make a call, you have the ability to Google something, you have the ability to ask for help, you have the ability to send an email, you have the ability to do something differently than you have done before. You may not know what that thing is that you need to do to improve your mental health, but you are certainly not stuck. And again, when we tell ourselves something through an incantation, we believe it. That's what's so powerful about this. So if you're using any of these, I want you to stop doing that, because you're going to feel totally stuck, and then you're going to feel like there's no way to improve. Okay? So you're not stuck. The phrase that you can use instead is, I am currently figuring out XYZ, instead of I am stuck with XYZ. Okay? And then the final one is but. Now, I see people delay their mental health with the phrase but all the time. So here's how they usually do it. They'll say, I know I really, really need to improve my mental health, but I've just got so much going on at work. Or, but I've got too many demands at home. Or, but whatever. And then they just insert an excuse. What this does is, inside of the mind, it creates the perception that it's an either or. That it's, I either improve my mental health or I do this other thing. And so they continuously put themselves on the back burner again and again and again, because they've convinced themselves it's binary, it's one or the other. So instead, what you want to do is use the phrase and, right? So I must improve my mental health, and I need to take care of my kids. I must improve my mental health, and I need to improve my marriage. I need to improve my mental health, and I have some things I need to do at work. Okay? And you'll notice as you start to do this, it starts to help your mind realize that it's not either or, that you actually can do lots of things. No human being prioritizes only one thing in their life. That's just not how it works. There are 6 main areas of our life that we have to be making progress on in a continuous basis, and that would include your career, your finances, your relationship, your emotions, your physical health, and then your time and your habits. Okay? But that's 6 things. It's not that many things. That's all, really, if you think about it, that's all a human being is just those 6 things. So if you're feeling like you don't have enough time or whatever it is, what I have found is 19 times out of 20, it's just that somebody keeps telling themselves, I don't have enough time, or I can't do it, or I want to improve my mental health, but I can't because of this or this. And really what it is they're just telling themselves a story of limitation. Okay, and so if you remember, whatever you tell yourself becomes what you believe, whether it's true or not. So think about it. If you keep telling yourself, I can't improve my mental health, I'm stuck, there's no possibility, it's over, I want to, but I can't. That's going to be your life. And I'm trying to have a little bit of like big brother tough love with you right now, because I was once in that place too, and I see people do this all the time. I'll be on the phone with people, and I'll hear them say that. And whether I'm helping connect them with a therapist or getting them some resources and telling them, hey, use this on a regular basis, or whether they want to do like one of my programs or something, whatever it is they decide is best for them, but they come up with a story of why they're not going to do what they know they need to do to improve their mental health. So I remember I was consulting with a lady. She had an anxiety issue, and therapy had worked great for her in the past, right? Which is not always the case, but it had worked great for her. And so I said, great, you know what you need to do is you just need to go back and get back in touch with your old therapist. And she was telling herself, I know I need to, but I got so many things going on at work. And I said, okay, gotcha. And what I asked her is, I said, are you feeling stressed and overwhelmed at work? She said, oh, yes, absolutely. And I said, are you getting behind at work? She said, yes, I am. That's the problem. I said, interesting. Do you think that you might be behind at work and stressed and overwhelmed because you've not been prioritizing your mental health? And that's when she realized that her career was not going to get any less stressful until she handled the mental health issue. She had the cart before the horse. She was waiting for this magical moment when she felt stress-free to then go and get mental health help to reduce her stress, which is completely backwards and ridiculous. But I've seen you guys do this to yourselves. You're essentially saying, I know I need to prioritize a strategy or a method or getting help to improve my mental health, but I'm not going to do that until I reach this moment when I feel more mentally healthy. Isn't that ridiculous? right? And so remember, emotion equals behavior equals results. So a lot of times people stress out about a particular set of results they're getting, like their money is not good, or their career's in bad shape, or their relationship's in bad shape. And they think that they need to fix that particular thing first and then put themselves last. And what I'm here to tell you is that's not the case. What I have found working with people over the years is as soon as we help them get their mental health in a really good place, it's very easy for them to handle the issues in their career. It's very easy for them to improve their finances. It's very easy for them to improve their relationship. Because your mental health is the filter through which you experience everything in your life. So it has to be your number one priority. People tell themselves, another common one is, I just can't make my mental health a priority because my kids are my number one priority. And then they're shocked when I tell them that the number one determining factor of mental health issues in kids is whether the parent has a mental health issue. So in fact, the most generous thing you can do for your kids is prioritize your own mental health, right? So it's got to be done. And by the way, we want to help every single person get the mental health they deserve in every way. And this does not mean everybody has to use my process or my method. And I'm honestly not the best fit for everybody, right? I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But what I care about more is that you get yourself unstuck to do something to improve your mental health. And if you don't wake up from the story you've been telling yourself, you never will. And 10 years is going to fly by like a snap of the finger. And you'll go, and maybe it already has, right? And you've been waiting for this moment when the time is going to be right. There is no right time. There's only right now, right? And unless you seize right now, then you're going to lose all your time. Okay. So we want to help you. If you need help getting in touch with a therapist, we want to help you. We don't do therapy, but we want to help you if that's what you will respond best to. If you need just some free resources, we have hundreds and thousands of free resources and trainings we want to help you with. If you feel like you need more one-on-one help, we do free coaching sessions. Reach out at mentalhealthcoaching.com. Just do something, please. Please do something. Myself, my team, and our community, by extension, we have a mission to get rid of anxiety and depression on the face of the planet. That's what we're after. Because nobody deserves to live with anxiety and depression. And it's possible to live without it. You just got to learn you got to learn the right strategies. You got to learn how to do it. And you also got to make yourself do something. So if you have found something that worked for you in the past and you just need to get back with it, then get back with it. If you have tried a couple things in the past that have not worked and you need to try something new, do something, take action. Maybe it'll work for you, maybe it won't, but at least you'll be a step forward towards figuring out what actually works. But do something, because the surest way to stay stuck is to keep doing what you've been doing. I mean, just think about the obviousness of that, right? If you're feeling stuck and you don't like how things are right now, it's because you're engaged in a certain set of patterns of thinking and feeling and talking to yourself and taking action. So those have to start to change, and the only person that can do that is you. So just take some type of action today. And we want to help you. We're happy to advise you at any point. We'll help you get resources. We'll help you get connected with the right people. We're happy to advise you, okay? But do something. So anyway, hope you guys found this useful, and we're excited to help you accelerate your mental health journey in whatever way we can. Thanks for being a part of the community. Let us know in the comments what you think, what your questions are, and we want to help you and support you, okay? Take care for now, guys. See you soon. Bye.